So going into 2020, the left is in a very precarious situation. I mean, best case scenario, we end up with Joe Biden, who, I mean, at his most useful will be a tool for the left, but let's not have any delusions. Any wins that we can get out of him will have to be dragged out of him. And so that does leave the left in a very tough situation. How do we move forward? What is the best path forward? And I think that we can look historically in the US, the power of the left has never really lied with institutional power. It has lied in the people. And we can look, I think the clearest example of this is with FDR. FDR, today is thought of as this, president that really moved the U.S. to the left in many ways. But at the time, he was actually considered the savior of capitalism, and it wasn't FDR that. It wasn't like that he really, really wanted to do the New Deal when he became president, but there was such a calling for it, and this was a time in the U.S. where organized labor had so much more power in the U.S. and they were able to get huge concessions out of him, like the 40-hour work week, like Social Security, and so I think that is where we should look at it with today, where we are not going to necessarily be in a good situation, but the power of organized labor is just as powerful as ever. And so I saw this post in Jacobin, and I really thought that it made some excellent points, and it really just works as a good template for where I feel like the left should be thinking about organized labor. So the Milwaukee Bucks just went on strike. You can too, and also I'll link the article in the description. That way you guys can read it for yourselves if you'd like to. So the Milwaukee Bucks need one more victory over Orlando Magic to advance to the second round of the NBA playoffs. But as the end of the warm-up buzzer sounded on Wednesday afternoon, the court was empty. Instead of getting ready for a tip-off, the Bucks were demanding to talk to the Attorney General of Wisconsin. So this was really exciting news when it first came out. The Bucks refused to play to protest the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, an hour south of Milwaukee. Officers from Kenosha Police Department shot Blake, a 29-year-old black man, in the back. Blake is currently paralyzed, unconscious. His three young children witnessed the shooting. They shot him in the back 7 times. So, in other words, the Milwaukee Bucks went on strike. And this is actually really important because a lot of people were calling this a boycott. This is not a boycott. The NBA players, while they are very well paid, they are laborers. And that is what they're doing. They're withholding their labors. They are going on strike. This is not like some boycott. And people will try to change the messaging around this to not give people ideas. People in power will try to be like, oh, it's more of a boycott than a strike. No. It is a strike. NBA players are laborers. They just are compensated very well. They risk losing money and career advancement to demand justice. Most of us will never be able to waltz past Gary Clark like Giannis, but almost anyone can go on strike with their coworkers. If you decide to do it, you can make a big difference in your own life, in the lives of other people. And so basically what the article does after this is go over of a few key points of how we can move towards more organized labor. And it is a little simplistic, I would say. It's not like the most detailed points, but I mean, it's something. And I think it's something that we can look at as a template. So the first step, talk with your coworkers. A strike means you and your coworkers refuse to do your jobs until your boss, or sometimes the government, meets your demands. If you're going to take effective action at work, you've got to know what your coworkers care about. And so, I mean, this is incredibly important. Obviously, any big steps towards more organized labor, there's going to have to be some organizing, and that involves talking with people. And I think it's really important to get that dialogue talking. If you are in, a workplace currently and you are not a member of a union or anything, start talking with other people. And maybe just if you have some questions on it, I mean, ask your coworkers. Maybe they know more about it, or maybe if you are a little more informed on it, maybe tell some of your coworkers about it. But as workers, one of the biggest powers that you have is the ability to withhold your labor, and the article talks about that a little bit more. So you just can't talk. You have to act, and that's totally true. Just talking about what's wrong at work or in the world won't change it. Talking is an essential start, but you have to be ready to act. You need a specific place to win, one that takes into account the tactics your boss might use to fight back and how to overcome them. And so, I mean, this is really true. We saw this with Amazon. This was probably about a month ago. But yes, there was a higher up person, and they were trying to start getting the workers to organize more. And he was quickly let go. He was fired very fast. And that is, it's so hard to tell people. And that's why the first step about talking, that's super important. It's like, what are we willing to, because I mean, that's the thing, is a lot of workers are in really tough situations. And I mean, we are literally in a recession right now. And so it's not going to be easy to say to forego wages, to forego any number of things that you might lose, your livelihood, essentially, if you're fired. And so I think that if people are going to go on strike, if people are going to pursue organized labor, which I think is a good thing, I think that people should be well aware of the risks associated with it. All right. Withhold your labor and hit the boss where it hurts. So the NBA is big money, not just for the league owners and advertisers, but for cities and states too. But workers have powers in every single workplace on earth. When workers refuse to do their jobs, their boss can't make money. And so I mean, this is super. It's like I said, it seems super simple, but it's true, and this is like kind of the mindset that people need to start getting in. And you see this a lot with like people like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. There's this, our society really props up these very wealthy business owners and like, oh wow, they really built a business. And there's so much people just forget that like the worker, it would not be possible without the workers. And so I think that, the ability to show these, Elon Musk is nothing without his employees, and Jeff Bezos is nothing without his employees. So it's a two-way streak. And that's not to say like those workers, would necessarily like, it goes both ways is what I'm trying to say. And so workers need to know what their worth is. And so this next part, stay united. And I really feel like I saw this clip earlier, and I wanted to share it with you guys because I thought it was just really, really cool. This is an NBA host, Kenny Smith, and this is him talking about the NBA players and showing some real solidarity.
This is tough. I mean, right now my head is like ready to explode, like just in the thoughts of what's going on. And I don't know if I'm even appropriate enough to say it, what the players are feeling and how they're feeling. And I haven't talked to any of the players. I'm just like coming in, even like driving here and getting into the studio, hearing calls and people talking. And for me, I think the biggest thing now is to kind of, as a black man, as a former player, I think it's best for me to support the players and just not be here tonight. Figure out what happens after that. I just don't feel equipped.
And I respect that.
And he walks off there and currently standing in solidarity with the players. And I know that there's this tendency to also, not just with, Kenny Smith, but with players, people will say like, oh, they're rich. Like, what are these guys doing? How are they? But no matter what level you're at, it is not easy to put yourself in a position where you could lose status. You could lose future income. That's not like an easy thing to do at any level. Now it could be easier at some levels, but that's never like, I would like to applaud, Kenny Smith and the Bucks. I mean, yeah, people will be like, oh my gosh, oh boo-hoo, these NBA players. But like a lot of these guys, they didn't come from the most, the wealthiest places. A lot of these guys actually, while they might, make a lot per year now, I mean, also there's a number of NBA players that do end up going bankrupt. There's a number of, they don't always come from super wealthy backgrounds, and usually they don't actually. And so I feel like there is a very real attachment that these guys feel to what is going on in Milwaukee. And also, I don't want to just talk about the NBA. I know that WNBA has also, I think that there are some strikes going on with them as well, and they actually might have led the way on this. It just might not have got as much news coverage. I'm not sure on that. Don't quote me on that. But regardless, so the need to stay united is really important. It wasn't just one of the two Bucks who sat out the game. It was the whole team. Though they were bent on defeating each other on the court. Off the court, the Raptors and the Celtics talked together to be on the same page. After all, they are all part of the same union, one with a history of fighting the boss. And so, I mean, it's just super important. And obviously, to see someone like Kenny Smith standing in solidarity with the players, I think that's super important. And I do also would like to note that there's a little bit like, that's not to say that these other hosts also need to go off, because I mean, someone's got to talk about it. It is helpful if some of these hosts don't necessarily go on strike, if they are, maybe vocally are in support of the strike, but, it is helpful to have hosts that are able to talk about it and give some analysis. And so next step, make demands you can actually win. Just like you might not be able to dunk on James Harden, it's a lot of basketball references in this. You and your coworkers might not be able to get the state attorney general on the phone. The good news is you don't need to. The important thing is to think about your demands your boss can actually meet. Hint: it will always be more than they claim they can do, but less than you wish they could do. Think about how much power you're able to exercise and make your demands correspond to how much power you and your coworkers have. So this is super important. I mean, obviously you want to have realistic demands in any sort of labor strike, any sort of, negotiation at any point. But I do think they bring up an important thing. The boss isn't going to let it be super clear everything that they can, all the concessions they can make. And so I think that's really important. Never cross a picket line. This also goes with the, kind of showing solidarity. The NBA's rules allowed the Orlando Magic to claim a win when the Bucks refused to come onto the court. The Magic refused because they knew their shared interests with the Bucks as players and as young black men in America outweighed the short-term gain. Had the Magic taken the win, they wouldn't have been crossing a picket line. Crossing a picket line, doing business with a company whose workers are on strike, or even taking a job to replace striking workers hurts everyone. Don't do it ever. And this is, this is a really important thing. It is really important that we don't handicap organized labor in any way that we can reasonably do so. Obviously, if you're in some sort of dire situation, and like the only way, I know that everyone are going to be situations where they say don't do it ever. I think you should don't do it if as long as it's possible. But I don't want to say don't do it ever, because I know that there are people that don't necessarily have the means where they can necessarily be choosy about like what businesses they go to and whatnot. And so I wouldn't say don't do it ever, but I would say that most people are generally in the situation where there is no reason for them to ever cross a picket line. Learn from the pros. This is the final point. If you're thinking a strike might make a difference at your workplace, talk to someone who has the experience. If there's no union at your job already, reach out to the Emergency Worker Organizing Committee, a joint project of United Electrical Workers Union and the Democratic Socialists of America. You'll hear from an experienced labor organizer, and your conversations will be kept entirely confidential. Because it's going to take more than the bucks to put a stop to the racist shootings, poverty, and exploitation, it's going to take all of us. And so I think the main takeaway from this is that the left has to look to other means as a way to advance our policy agenda. And right now, institutional power doesn't look like it's going to be the way. With Bernie Sanders, that would have been a huge win. It would have been gigantic. But that also wouldn't have been all of it. It does have to start at the people. It does. And I think Bernie Sanders would be the first person who told you that. He was like, his literal slogan, not me, us. It was never about him. He did want to get into that position. Like, it would be good if we had the presidency. It would be good if we controlled the House, the Senate. That would be great. But we need more than that. We need the people behind it, and organized labor is where that all begins. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys found it somewhat informative, somewhat helpful. If you disagreed with anything I said, or if I got anything wrong, misrepresented anything, please leave a comment down below. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and